The first time I saw them, I thought they were children from a migrant ship that had gone off course. 3 small figures stood frozen at the edge of Dock 17, surrounded by towering cargo crates and the cold glow of station lights. They were trying very hard not to look scared. They were failing. Their clothes were torn, their skin carried a faint iridescence no human had, and their eyes, too old, too sharp, kept tracking every movement around them. The station was not kind to the lost. I knew that. Everyone did. I was just a maintenance contractor, a nobody who fixed air recyclers and patched hull plating, but I'd seen what happened when predators smelled weakness. So when a pair of scavengers started drifting closer, I stepped between them without thinking. I told the men to move on, told them the girls were under station protection. They laughed until I didn't. Something in my voice, or maybe my stance, made them decide I wasn't worth the trouble. When they left, the 3 girls stared at me like I'd just broken the laws of reality. They didn't speak my language at first. They huddled together, whispering in musical tones, clearly arguing about whether I was another danger. I knelt to make myself smaller and held out my station ID, the only harmless thing I had. After a long pause, the tallest of them reached out and touched the badge, eyes wide. She said something softly, and the others relaxed just a fraction. That was enough. I led them away from the docks and into the maintenance levels, places most people avoided because they were dull and smelled like coolant. To me, they were safe. I gave them water, then food from my ration pack. They ate like they hadn't in days, trying to be polite even through the hunger. That was when I realized these weren't just lost kids. There was discipline in the way they sat, in how they watched each other's backs. Whatever they were, they had been raised important. It took hours before I understood who they really were. My wrist translator finally caught enough of their language to form meaning, and the words made my blood run cold. Princesses. Not metaphorical, not ceremonial. Actual heirs of an interstellar empire whose name I recognized from news feeds and half-forgotten war reports. An empire that did not negotiate gently. An empire ruled by an empress known for burning entire fleets to make a point. I considered, briefly, handing them over to station security. That would have been the smart move. It would have been the safe move. But when I looked at them, at the way the smallest one had fallen asleep leaning against my arm, trusting me completely, I knew I couldn't do it. I told them they could stay with me until we figured something out. The tallest princess studied my face for a long time, then nodded solemnly, as if sealing a vow. The days that followed were the strangest of my life. I hid them in an unused maintenance sector, one I'd been assigned years ago and knew better than anyone. I rigged alarms and cameras, rerouted power so no one would come snooping. I taught them basic human words, and they taught me theirs. They told me how their diplomatic vessel had been sabotaged, how their escorts died buying them time to escape. They had fled in a lifeboat, trusting ancient emergency charts that led them to this forgotten station. They should have been found by their people within hours. Instead, something had gone very wrong. Search parties hadn't come. No signals answered their beacons. Someone powerful wanted them lost. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't a hero. But I could fix things, and I could plan. I used old favors, traded repairs for information. I learned that bounty notices were circulating quietly, targeting valuable fugitives. I learned that certain station officials were being paid to look the other way. When armed men came asking questions, I misdirected them. When scanners swept my sector, I shut systems down and prayed. Once, when a pair of mercenaries forced their way into the maintenance levels, I stood in front of the door with nothing but a welding torch and a stubborn refusal to move. They hesitated. That hesitation saved us. The princesses watched everything, their expressions unreadable, their trust in the absolute. Weeks passed. The girls grew stronger, more confident. They helped me with repairs, laughing when sparks flew or gravity fluctuated. For a while, it almost felt normal. Then the sky over the station changed. Warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls marked with the sigil of an empire that did not arrive quietly. The station went into panic. Alarms screamed. Communications flooded with a single demand: surrender the lost heirs immediately. People ran. Security forces froze. I felt a calm settle over me, heavy and final. The Empress had found them. And she was not known for mercy. They came for us with an honor guard that made the corridors feel small. Soldiers in armor that hummed with restrained violence surrounded my sector. At their head walked the Empress herself, taller than any of them, her presence crushing. Her eyes locked onto me first, not her daughters. She took in my patched uniform, my grease-stained hands, the way I stood between her and them without realizing I was doing it. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then one of the princesses stepped forward and said a single word in her language. Mother. The sound cracked something in the air. The Empress knelt, wrapping her daughters in her arms, relief flickering across her face before hardening into something sharper. She turned back to me slowly. I expected death. I expected pain. What I got was scrutiny. She asked me why I had protected them when I knew who they were. I told her the truth. Because they were lost. Because they were scared. Because someone had to. The words felt small against the weight of her gaze, but they were all I had. The Empress listened. Then she did something no one expected. She bowed her head. Not deeply, not submissively, but enough to acknowledge a debt. She told me that her empire would have burned this station to ash if harm had come to her children. She told me that my actions had prevented a war that would have killed millions. She told me that I could ask for anything. I didn't ask for wealth. I didn't ask for power. I asked for the bounty networks hunting innocents to be dismantled, for the officials who sold children to face justice, for the station to be protected. The Empress smiled then, a fierce, dangerous thing, and said my requests were already done. Before she left, the smallest princess hugged me, her arms tight around my waist. The tallest pressed her forehead to my chest in a gesture of respect. The Empress watched it all, eyes thoughtful. When the warships departed and the station returned to its uneasy rhythm, I went back to fixing air recyclers. But sometimes, when I look up at the stars, I know that somewhere out there is an empire that remembers the day a nobody stood in front of its future and refused to move.